Hey everybody, Tony here from Boost to Hit. So today we are going to go over the Cryx Necrofactorium. We're going to deep dive a little about what the Necrofactoriums are, who is running them, kind of what they produce there, and what's going to happen as Orgoth and Cryx start to dominate over Imran and the mainland. So what is that going to look like? Shout out to everyone who has been following us the last 2 months. I'm really excited. We are well over 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We're continuing to get a lot of hits on our blog. So please make sure if you have time, check out our blog. Take a look at any of our previous videos, and please give us any type of feedback you want to. There'll probably be some change over the next couple weeks into Boost to Hit. Some exciting stuff coming out, but I'm not able really to talk about that right now. But yeah, we're going to look at, I guess some things I will say is that we're going to look at doing some product reviews. I just got some terrain in by Ender Games, so I'm going to do a little video on that. And we're going to look at some models that have already come out, but I want to talk about them anyways. So we're really excited, but if you all are ready, let's dig in. So what is the Cryx Necrofactorium? Well, the Necrofactorium is really the necro-industrial complex of all of Cryx. It's made up of necrotags, you have necrosurgeons, you have vast hordes of thralls, some of them are really simple, some are really specialized, and you even have incorporeal wraiths. So it's really in charge of maintaining the wartime industries, and a lot of it does fall specifically to the necrotags and necrosurgeons. So to talk about each of them first, we're going to talk about the necrotags. Necrotags, they're really these half-human, unliving mechanics, right? They focus on innovation, construction of Cryx's advanced weaponry. And the best way to describe them is they have absolutely zero moral issues with doing anything to body parts, to any type of equipment that they have, any type of metal. It's really something that the gods themselves of Imran would be appalled for, and just morally just so unethical, right? And that's where these guys really thrive. Guys and girls really thrive with the necrotags, right? They'll even do experiments on their own body to help themselves. There's literally nothing stopping them. And then we have the necrosurgeons. So necrosurgeons, that's really where the production of the thralls fall into. They deal with a lot of thralls. They also deal with wraiths. They have a special group called wraith binders, which we'll talk about a little bit more. So they kind of deal with, the raw bodies and building these mechanothralls and all this other fun stuff. The Necrofactoriums also deal really closely with Cryx fleets and the Lich Lords that command them, right? And a lot of reason why is because they have to rely on them very heavily to get their bodies, right? None of the Necrofactoriums right now are in the mainlands. They were all destroyed during the Infernal Wars back in 612. So they've taken a long time to try to start building these Necrofactoriums again. So in order for Cryx to get new bodies, they really rely heavily on these fleets. And a lot of these fleet ships are even built to where they're like chop shops, right? They are production facilities to go and build a ton of new bodies. Now currently, Necrofactorium is commanded by 2 Lich Lords. We have Mort Nebra, who runs all of them on the Shard Islands, and then Decathus, I hope I'm saying that name right. He is the new Lich Lord, and he has been tasked specifically with sending out Necrofactoriums and building them on the mainland. So first, let's talk about Mort Nebra and her Necrofactorium. So with her, she is, like I said, all of hers are construct on the Shard Island. She oversees the Warjack and Thal productions and all of Cryx cities. That includes Skell, Dregsmouth, Blackwater, and the new Lichgate. Lichgate is the newest Necrofactorium and is really the biggest, the best, the newest one that they have, and it's the seat of her power. So that's where she sits at. Mort Nebra has also really worked with the Paymaster of Cryx to improve a lot of the roads. So currently on the Shard Islands, they have roads everywhere. It's not like they don't have roads, but they're really dirt roads, right? So they're really prone to being washed out, to being flooded. A lot of things could fall off and fall into the ocean with them. And that's been a problem because if you want to streamline production process, you need to have better roads. So Morton Evra has really leaned on the Cryx Paymaster to go and build that infrastructure to have better roads. So go Morton Evra, really pushing the industrial growth of the Shard Islands and helping our fellow thralls and force pirates to have a little bit of a safer life. It's very nice of you. On the other hand, we have Decathus. I think it's Decathus. He is in charge of building the Necrofactoriums on the mainland, and this is a pretty daunting task considering all of them were destroyed beforehand. But these Necrofactoriums are extremely important because this is going to allow them to have more production possibilities. They can go and strike deeper into enemy territories because a lot of these are built way behind enemy lines. Also, it's going to allow them to get new inventors. And what I mean by that is a lot of times Cryx, they'll find these great inventors. When they die, they're like, no, we're going to bring you back. And they will actually whisper it to these souls. Instead of going to the afterlife, they will strike a devil's bargain with them to bring them back. And a lot of times they'll do that because they're afraid of dying. So they'll come back and then work for Cryx to help build new awful things within Cryx. The other thing they do a lot of times is they'll just use their foul magic and force people into servitude. That's what they've done, what they said with a number of warcasters in the past, to make sure that they are now part of Cryx. So that's super fun of them. And you know what? Let's talk about what is produced in a Necrofactorium. So you have really three main things. You have Thralls, you have Wraiths, and then you have Warjacks. So with Thralls are created by runes. It's pretty simple. And what you see is the more complex the rune, the more intelligent that a Thrall has. So really simple rune structure on it is going to create your really basic Mechana Thralls that are just going to go run, destroy things, not thinking at all. Then you as you get them more and more advanced, you can get to a point with a Thrall where it almost seems as if they have a personality. But by no means are they a sentient being. They are still very much so constructed to be a Thrall, and it's all an artificial type of intelligence. They are not truly sentient on their own means. It's just how complex these runes are. Next, you have your Wraiths, right? So how Wraiths are produced, and Wraiths are really just ghosts, right? That's the best way to describe them. There's really two ways you can bring about Wraiths. Sometimes you can artificially create a Wraith by forcibly separating the soul from the body, or you can even summon a Wraith back to the physical world from the lands of the dead. Now, most of them occur naturally, and they're created by their own pathos of anger or sadness and a refusal to pass on. And that's where these Cryxian Wraithbinders come into play, right? Cryxian Wraithbinders, they really have a really proven track record of being able to take both types of those Wraiths and force them into servitude. And Cryx has a really long history with souls and these Wraithbinders. It's where they've tried to stabilize the Wraith itself because the power of a Wraith will fluctuate. Sometimes it'll be really strong, and they've noticed with, around certain holidays, depending on certain ground that they walk on, if loved ones are near or far away, it'll actually impact how they interact in their power. So to kind of stabilize this and create a constant force, they end up creating soul cages at one point. And this is also really, really important because two of their Lich Lords, both Felminus and Timbrus, do not have a physical body anymore. They're all incorporeal. Well, they're not really incorporeal, but they're Wraith, right? So because of this, Cryx has dedicated a lot of research into Wraiths to try to understand them better so they can keep these Lich Lords around. And the third thing we gotta talk about, and what's super exciting, is the Warjack production, right? So Warjacks, a lot of the Cryx Warjacks were created based off of, how the other world, other countries have created these Warjacks, right? But they didn't even specialize. Cryx actually, for their Warjack production, they have a very limited production of standardized parts. So your cortexes, your arc nodes, and other mechanical components are going to be standardized throughout all of Cryx. So you're going to get those same things. But then they will pass it off to whatever the local necrotechs are, and they will allow them to use locally available resources to fabricate whatever the remainder of the parts are. So there'll be, the bodies, the weapons, stuff like that. There's a pretty loose idea on, because there's no unionized work on it. There's really no standardization on that. That being said, like, all of the Warjacks are pretty much the same, right? They're really broken into 3 different things. You've got your Helljacks, which are your big jacks, your Bone Jacks, your small ones, and then your amphibious jacks. So they've done a pretty good job about that. What's really cool about Warjacks, though, is how their cortex is created. So in your typical cortex and any of the other kingdoms, it has a mechanical formula that's been embedded onto it and allows the Warcaster access to go and manipulate it. Cryx actually takes necromantic runes and places them on there instead. And that does 2 things. One, it allows the Warjacks to be significantly more savage and almost more of a bestial machine that despises all life. And also, it creates a cortex that responds to the mind of both the undead as well as living Warcasters. Now, this is very, very important for Cryx because they have a very unique situation. Some of their Lich Lords, some of their Iron Liches, all that stuff, they were around before the gift of magic was given to mankind. And because of that, right, they would not be able to control a Warjack. But because of these runes were inscribed on there, it allows them to access the same level as a Warcaster could to control these Warjacks. So it's a very, very unique setup. The problem with these Cryx War cortexes is that they're extremely unstable and they degrade really, really quickly. So due to this, right, usually Warjacks grow more feral and vicious over time as they slowly lose the capacity for simple problem solving. So instead of them waiting to have a door open, they're just going to be more savage about it and just destroy the door, potentially destroy the building. So you have those problems. The other thing is that their internal systems are all hardened due to the necrotite that's used to fuel them. So necrotite, like we talked about before, is really just rocks and soil that has been bloodied, usually over battlefields where there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of sorrow, desperation, just all horrific acts. It bleeds into the ground and creates this fuel for Cryx called necrotite. And what you have to do for these Warjacks and for these the Warcaster army, even, you have to harden the material itself. And really the reasons are is because necrotite burns significantly hotter than the coal standard does, right? They'll still use coal, but they prefer necrotite. Burns significantly hotter. It'll also produce a poisonous gas that liquefies and corrupts living tissue for any living creature and leaves the dead completely unaffected. So that's great if you are already dead within Cryx, but there's a couple of Warcasters that are alive that I don't know how they're surviving well, but they're doing as good as they can. Now, if a Warjack that is not hardened by this uses necrotite, it'll actually rapidly corrode the Warjack significantly fast and will burn out completely various components. Could be like their optical sensors, anything like that, right? It'll destroy a normal Warjack. So if you were ever out in the field, if you ever run an RPG game and you're going to use necrotite, just know if you do not have a hardened system, it is bad for your Warjack and for your Warcaster armor. So that's kind of the basis of like what the Necrofactorium is. Now we know that as they're starting to establish more into the mainland, they're doing this to help the Orgoth, right? Because the Orgoth and them have paired up. And I'm curious to see what happens. There is a lot of benefits for them going onto the mainland. Some of it so they can continue their fuel to keep going on and destroying more people. Also, it gives them an ability to go and find the other dragons on the mainland and can create strike teams to go and Vinithrax, who is one of the Warcasters that focuses on that, to go and kill those dragons so that Turok can be stronger. And that's what he wants, right? He wants to get his soul back. And I think eventually you're going to see that Cryx, because this is what Cryx does, they're going to turn on the Orgoth. And that's really what they want to do. They're teaming up with them because it's convenient. They're not going to stay with them long term. Yeah, so that's kind of what I have on that. For future episodes, I've got a couple of requests to talk more about Turok and the Dragon War, so I'll probably do that. I also refound some of my RPG books, and there is the Iron Kingdom slang. So I definitely want to go over that because I think that's going to be a really fun episode. So you can start trash talking your opponents in some Iron Kingdom slang. But other than that, that's all I've got. Thank you all very much for listening, and have a good one.